Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Simply Nerdy. I'm your host, Steven. Today, I'm joined by a very special panel. We've got Chelsea.
Heyo.
We've got Elizabeth. We've got Josh.
Hello.
And we've got Harper. I call him Harper. Michael Harper. We are a bunch of UX professionals and professors at Utah Valley University. And we are here to talk about the Apple Vision Pro. Primarily because there's a lot of mixed opinions going around online right now, and it's kind of a hot topic. So we're just going to cover it and give you our overall initial thoughts of what we thought of the announcement. And just to preface those thoughts, though, I have almost every Apple device in my house. I love being a part of the Apple ecosystem. And random fact, I have over 270 movies on my iTunes library. And my wife gets really embarrassed anytime I tell anyone that, so there you go. I was completely blown away by the announcement of the Apple Vision Pro. I have been dying for this announcement for years, and I'm so glad it's finally here. It looks amazing, but boy, does it have a really steep price. It's time for me to start saving. I've actually started working on a case study right now on an application idea for the device with my neighbor who happens to be a graphic designer, so we'll see how that goes. But I've started to dip my toes into the development process here. So I'm all in. But what are your all initial thoughts of this announcement?
I have been hearing a lot about it, both good and skeptical. Some people have been able to test it. Overall reactions are, yeah, it's good, but will it be able to get into the hands of the everyday consumer in the future, especially with this steep price? Thoughts on that are, this kind of headset might be viewed more as a dev kit, things for hobbyists, and other things like that, people that really like the Apple ecosystem, but not for the everyday consumer. It's not like the iPhone when it came out, is what people are saying. And so that's just kind of my general thoughts on it. It's like, with the steep price, it makes sense because of all the tech they crammed into it, which kind of, I guess in essence, had to be there, because with previous VR headsets, it's they have problems with being completely encased into a world, messing with like the biological sense of needing to know where you're at, and also the motion sickness part, which is probably my biggest thing whenever I've used, because I've been in Harper's classes, and he
got motion sick in
the headset. If I wore it for more than an hour, it would have messed me up. It was bad. I couldn't handle being in the headset for more than an hour because of the motion sickness part. So that's why I'm skeptical.
So I was really excited when I heard the announcement about the Vision Pro, and it's personal to me. I work in a company where we're developing an AR experience, and right now that's all largely done within an app. Constantly trying to figure out ways to get people more engaged in the environment and not feel like they're stuck inside of a phone. We want people to engage with each other. I'm really excited about the Apple Vision Pro because of its focus on AR technology over VR. I also had motion sickness happening within the VR space, and I think that, well, within workrooms, we did a lot of testing in that while you're in Mike's class. Yeah, that one wasn't as bad because they have you hopping around. You're not moving within the space. AR, I believe, is going to be very different. I don't think it's going to have that thick thing going on because you will be able to see the environment around you all the time. It's not going to put you in a big space where they're going to have to recreate, your brain, they have to decide like where you are, even though I can't see it. This one you'll be able to see and interact.
I don't know. It was kind of, I was surprised as everyone else when it came out, and I wouldn't say I'm excited for it, but I wouldn't say that I'm not intrigued. Like I've said before, like I'm kind of the middle on it. Just I should preface, like, I don't think I'm biased, but I have been a long time Quest 2 user. Like I've been using a Quest 2 for the past two and a half years. I've done gaming on it. I've done like school projects on it, like built 3D models in it, and used it in watched movies, done meetings, like used it in a variety of applications. And so, yeah, I kind of like seeing price tag and seeing the features of the Vision Pro. It's not that I don't think that it will, like, I definitely, with it being Apple, I think they'll definitely help AR and VR move forward. I'm just skeptical as how they will, because right now what they've shown hasn't, like I said, as a long time user of the Quest 2, I'm just like, how is this any different? Like, other than upgraded technical aspects like the 4K cameras and things like that, or 4K screens and whatnot, I'm just kind of wondering what difference it's going to make in the AR and VR space. So that's kind of where I stood seeing it.
Well, no, I would agree with everyone's opinion on it. I think that there's a lot of questions about what it's really going to push beyond just the technology, right? I mean, technically, it is an amazing device. I mean, some of the problems that we have, I've got we've got a whole set of HoloLenses, we've got Magic Leap 2s, we've got other technology that we're looking at getting, including Vision Pros. So we've got our 2-year budget that we're lining up to get placements out, get all of our, 10 Odysseys out of here. We're changing out our indexes. We're, all these different things. And we're like, well, what are we going to put our money into? I mean, Vision Pro has to be in there just because it is going to be a mover and shaker. Does it mean it's taking out the rug from all the others? No. I mean, there's a place for all of them in some form. I wouldn't put it, so when Chelsea brought up, the ideas about the dev kit, and then Stephen, you were talking about the price. The price, to be honest, for me is right on. I think as consumers, we want it to be at that iPhone level. This is not an iPhone. This is also, I think they're intentionally pricing it out so that it is out of the reach of most people, beyond just kind of a fun gadget. It's meant to get it in the hands of serious developers and people who have a major interest in it. Okay, and it is a testing platform. I mean, their goal is not to have a headset like this. Their goal in 10 years is to have it in glasses. They've stated that, and these technologies will be miniaturized over time. But if you look at the greater history of this, think about what they've done with ARKit. They were the first to really come out with any type of developer solution, and no one can match that. Android's, Core AR is, to be honest, as far as I'm concerned, it's in shambles. It's just a disaster on many fronts. Not that it's bad technology, but its execution is horrendous. And ARKit has been developing for years. And so when Elizabeth's saying is, we're using phones and we're doing our AR stuff, they're right on track with what's in line. I mean, they're doing what is expected for AR right now. If I pull out my HoloLens, that is kind of your upper division of an AR. But even Microsoft has made major missteps on that. And as far as the technology side, having an M2 processor with an R1 communication piece of silicon, nothing can touch that right now. I mean,
know, yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's pretty intense power.
It's very intense. And the way they did it is really very Apple-esque, and it's putting Qualcomm on notice with their XR2. I mean, they don't come out with something in their XR3 chipset that can rival that and keep up to pace, man, they're really going to be struggling. And that's where the HoloLens has struggled. It's good tech, amazing tech, but they ran into I guess technology adaptation problems with projecting into the screen. So, for example, when we use a HoloLens outside, Magic Leap 2 solved that problem with their new pancake lenses, to where you can actually dim the screen so that you have some type of backlighting, right, that you can properly set. HoloLens, you don't, and it's a real hard thing when you're out in high light. If you're out doing a field exercise and you can't see anything, and that's where the technology is at a dead end, as far as I'm concerned, unless they come up with a unique way of doing it. So it's not that Microsoft doesn't want to do things; is their technology route kind of painted them into a particular corner. It's amazing technology. I'm not blasting.
Absolutely.
Someone asked me about that. Oh, you must think that HoloLens is terrible. No, it's amazing. It's just that they took a particular route to where they've now got to figure out a different solution to deal with what they need to have done. Now, as far as the visor is concerned on the HoloLens, I would still take that over a Vision Pro, but I don't think the Vision Pro is still meant to be out in the field.
No, absolutely. Yeah. They didn't show any footage in their announcement where they were outside. It's all indoors.
Well, or I mean, let's be fair. Let's say I want to be on Toyota. They use HoloLens a lot on their production lines and training, or if I'm going to be using it at the Lockheed plant for F-35 doing wing spars. Well, those are still very cultured environments. They're not outside, but they're still an enterprise. I don't think Apple is trying to say, you know what, there's going to take care of everything that you need. This is a developer solution to say, what are we going to do? Let's work with the hardware. Let's get it perfected over the next 2 years in this solution, and then we're going to miniaturize it another step. And then they'll have all the applications. Now, that's one thing that no one's brought up yet, is being able to move over all your iPad applications directly over into the system. That's one problem that we've had with Microsoft with the HoloLens. It's all enterprise and it's all basically custom built. You go onto their store, it stinks. I mean, there's nothing, but again, it's $3,500. No consumer is going to go out and buy that and say, I wonder what they have on their store. They're not going to find anything except some puzzles and some little apps. So that's where Apple has a major advantage, being able to prototype, we'll use the word prototype, or field test this headset. So I don't know. I'm very upbeat about it. I think that it's going to be a massive shot in the arm for the XR industry overall, because it'll highlight what the capabilities truthfully can be, and it's going to push the competition.
Absolutely. That's actually one of the points I wanted to bring up is how will it affect the technology industry? Because the XR race will certainly accelerate at a faster pace now that Apple has joined the party. Chelsea brought up the fact that, using the Oculus Quest 2 and how she gets motion sick. That happens to me as well, and it typically happens to me when the headset lags and it's trying to catch up to what you're looking at, and that's when I get sick.
Even if it's off a few milliseconds, it will affect.
Yes, it really affects me in a big way. And then also, if I'm ever playing a game or application where I'm moving in a fluid motion, it's over. Instant headache. That is something that the M2 chip and the R1 chip are looking like they're going to solve. Is with that dual chip integration. You have that R1 that's solely focusing on the cameras and the sensors, and then the M2 for all the power. Like, I think that problem of lag is just going to be gone, at least in theory, right? We'll have to see when it actually comes out, and if I ever try it, I can say what it actually does. But from what I've heard of YouTubers and people that have actually tried it, the performance is spot on.
Yeah, that's something that I had to look it up to see the Vision Pro versus the Oculus Quest 2. A part of the motion sickness actually comes from frame rate. And apparently, according to VR websites, it was like what Oculus provides to the developers is a set of, you can make your stuff into multiple different frame rates, whereas it looks like the Vision has a flat one of 90 as far as we can see, whereas the Oculus can have somewhere down to 60. And so I think that might play a big difference into how motion sickness is handled, as well as the eye tracking part. And so when looking up articles about it, people that have actually tried it, they said that one of the things that Apple was trying to mitigate was the motion sickness part, which is why I'm actually really curious to try the Vision Pro, right? Sorry, I keep getting the name wrong. I keep calling it Vision Quest, and that is wrong. that is wrong.
Oh,
it is not
no,
the Vision
Chelsea.
Quest. The Vision Pro, and it is not. They're not calling it a VR headset. Gosh.
It's called spatial computing, is what they're saying. They're not using the AR VR language. They call it spatial computing, which is also an Apple thing to do.
They're not calling it the metaverse. They're not calling it the metaverse.
No, absolutely.
Well, they won't use that word at all. I use spatial computing in the classes. The term they didn't invent the term, but it needs to be applied properly. That's the thing. And Apple's trying to make sure that people understand that there's a lot more to these experiences than just metaverse ideas. There's a whole wide range of technologies and things that have to come into play in order to make these things actually occur as we design them to be. And so, anyway, that's what I would say about terms. Be very careful about it, Chelsea. But for sure, they didn't invent. They didn't say they did either.
It's so hard to be caught up with like words, buzzwords, and things like that because people try to create definitions for them, and Apple has really taken strides to break free from those definitions, trying to define their own product, saying, "Hey, we're not calling this a VR headset." And I think that's really important, especially adding it to their ecosystem because they've always done this. They've always created their own way of doing things, and it's worked well for them so far. And so it's exciting to see where they're going to take this.
Well, so let me ask this, and for Elizabeth and Josh specifically, and Chelsea's in this too, but Josh, has been out he's graduated from our program. Well, all of you have, but he's graduated. He's been out in the field quite a bit. But what's your take? And you're probably wanting to go here, Steve, but I'm going to drag us here, okay?
Do it, drag it.
Where is the IxD components on this? What are you seeing that Apple has done that really helps to start to define the IxD components more so than what others have done? What's your take on the interaction design components? There's a lot of interaction design components, and I went through and watched all of their sessions from Worldwide Developers Conference, and it's just soaked with all types of interaction design. So I want to know what your take is, what you've at least briefly seen in terms of what they're doing different.
Well, one off the bat, one thing I noticed was how Apple has still stuck with this idea where we are still on this kind of elevated flat surface, right? Like we have definitely expanded it. Like, okay, you can expand it to this big screen or, but the apps look very much the same as they do in your phone. And they look very much still kind of that flat look. You can move it around and things like that, but still very similar to what we've been using, which I think is interesting because I wonder, what they're doing. And I think that something like that could really help people to not be so hesitant to get into it. Like they'll get in there and they'll be like, this is familiar and I know that and things are working and they're good quality. And so they will be able to adapt to it more readily, I think. But that's me. I'm just curious about how that goes, but that's my assumption.
One of the, I think they even put out an article about this, but designing for spatial computing, like essentially, what am I trying to say? Like gestures and things like that, right? The physical interaction of navigating that space, like obviously there's the ability that you can, look with your eyes and it, select things that way, and there's the pinching and everything, right? But like as time goes on and new software comes into play or new abilities come into play with the hardware, like it is interesting and kind of exciting as to how we're gonna have to design for that. Obviously, you've seen it in like Iron Man and everything where like they do this to twist things and you like scrunch your hand to pinch and you do that to zoom in, like all of that kind of like just doing finger gestures in the air. But like, yeah, I'm kind of interested to see where the interaction design goes for, lots of other things. There's only so many gestures you can do with your hands, and even just kind of thinking about it now, I was like, are we gonna have to take some pointers from like American Sign Language in that instead of typing on a keyboard in thin air, maybe you do American Sign Language in front of your camera and it registers the words that way. Like, I don't know.
Anyway, so Josh, when you were talking about the gestures, the one thing that's really interesting is that if we look at, let me just pull up, since we're on video, some of the eye candy here. You know, I got lots of stuff in my office, so
Like the eye candy. Oh yeah.
So, you know, if I'm dealing with this type of action, when you have a HoloLens on, it's very much it's very exaggerated in terms of what your gesture controllers are. You're very much in, well, I'm going to rotate it, I'm going to do this. On the Vision Pro, I haven't had it on, but having had conversations with people who have personally and been listening to people online, if you notice what they did is everything is now eye. The eyes are right there.
Yep.
And only very, very simple. I hate to use the word simple. They're not exaggerated. They're very controlled. That's not even the right word. But you know precise. What I'm saying is they're precise, but they're at your side.
Mm-hmm.
And those cameras are saying, look, just do basic, simple hand gestures. Don't go way out. Now, there's cool things about doing this, but at the same time, Apple is saying, no, we're going a different route. Everything now is the eye. And Marquise Brownlee, when he said it was just really magical. He says, I don't really use that word very often, right? And others have said that too, that it was just so precise, even for an unreleased product. It still has a year to get out, guys. And to be this good means they spent a lot of time. And it's been, people have said, 8 years, 10 years. They've been working on this for over 20 years, technology-wise, right? And so there's a lot that's compiling into it. So gesture-wise, they've taken a different approach. The HoloLens is very much exaggerated. It's all right in front, and you're supposed to do things with your hands. And Apple's like, no, let's use the most precise tool, which is your eyes. And then the hands become a secondary. No controllers. Does that mean that we'll not have controllers? No, I mean, you can put controllers. There's been patents that Apple was using a ring. There was also a patent where they were working with gloves. So there could be a whole wide range of different applications for this. But the eyes, I thought that for me, we had talked about this previous to them, releasing the Vision Pro to the public. And we just weren't sure what it was going to be. The eyes, to me, was probably the biggest upscale. I was like, wow. Yeah, that really makes a lot of sense. So
I completely agree with you. And I've actually watched a lot of Marcus Brownlee's videos as well, and as well as others online. And the words that are being used are, like you said, magic, telepathic. Like, the eye tracking is crazy accurate. And then the pinching on your fingers, yeah, you can have your hands like on the couch, like off your side, in your lap, wherever. And yeah, like Harper was saying, you don't have to have these exaggerated movements to interact with the objects or experiences that are placed in front of you, which is just awesome.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that they won't have those types of interactions, right? We just don't know. There is value in saying, when I have a spatially anchored object, there's the key term, right? Spatial computing, spatially anchored object. And if I've got a globe and I want to grow it, I do see value in saying, well, I want to work with that object. And that's where the HoloLens really excels. Great.
Agreed. Yep.
So we just don't know.
What are your thoughts about the overall design of the Apple Vision Pro? Because you got the battery that's connected to the headset and just like in your pocket or wherever you want to set it down. The headset itself has, a 3D, one piece 3D glass on the front, and it's on a aluminum alloy frame. Like, this thing could be heavy. That's like the one negative I can think of, is it could be pretty heavy on your face to have for an extended amount of time. And then that battery as well, that seems like it's pretty standard now to have a battery life of 2 hours, but also like a 2 hour battery life. Like, what are your guys' thoughts of the overall design?
So the design, I feel like it was expected. It's sleek. It's an Apple design. It is. It is on the bigger side, but I don't think that they could have avoided it at this time with limits of technology. But yeah, I like the look of it. The pass-through with the eyes on the screen is a little bit jarring. I'm not exactly sure how much I like that. And as far as the weight, it apparently is a heavier headset. Again, something that they couldn't avoid because of limitations of hardware nowadays. And so maybe they're going to have to come out with something kind of like what people have been doing with the Quest 2, adding the Boba VR battery pack on the back. There might need to be something like that to like counterbalance it. And also, a bonus thing I want to mention is a part of Apple's ecosystem is out of the box, it works. So as a part of this, what I've been hearing is you purchase the headset by appointment and they teach you how to use it before you take it home. And I think that's solid.
As far as the like design of the physical, or the headset, I agree with Chelsea. It's pretty sleek. I'm a fan of Apple products and I use them. I agree with the eyes being a little bit jarring, but I really do feel like it. Before I judge that, I want to test it out, right? Because we talk to people wearing sunglasses quite often, and it is possible that it won't be as like goofy, silly as we think. Of course, I'm coming from a tech background. I'm used to using these kinds of things. Like Michael mentioned that this is very much a developed, like an R&D type tool that was just with the price tag and everything. People that will be using it are probably going to be pretty familiar with tech and comfortable using these types of things. Really get out there like the Apple Watch to everybody. How soon will that happen? I don't know. Maybe it'll be a little bit more clear or like thinner borders around the face so that you can see people's faces better. Thing I'm working on it with my company, because we're very much trying to design a situation where couples can interact together while they're experiencing the AR. We don't want to limit that emotional connection, like people together, physically together. They showed that part in the demo video where someone came in the room and the person in the headset can still talk to them. And I was like, it did make me hesitate, right? Because I'm like, how much do you really want to talk? I mean, the girl in the headset probably can see really well, but the person who's talking to the one headset, I think it would be a little bit of a struggle. So, yeah. But again, like I said, until I'm able to user test it, I don't know.
It's Apple trying to find an answer to, enhance the user experience of everyone around the one using the headset. It's a great and easy way for people to know when you can see them. Like I said, I've had a lot of time with the Oculus Quest 2 as well. I've punched my father-in-law like twice when I've been playing some games on there.
At least that was what the excuse was. Right?
Exactly.
Oh man.
That is so ow.
I'm just kidding. But anyway, this is a cool way to say, hey, look, I can see you, you can see me. But to Elizabeth's point, yeah, who knows what that actually looks like in practicality? Maybe it would be a little weird. It was a way to try to answer that, to say, how can we still get the user to feel connected to the real world and let others know that they can interact with them and they can see them. And
could also make the argument, though, for several $100 less, you just lift it up and talk to them. And then when you look like, wow.
Apple doesn't want you to take the headset off.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
That's not taking the headset off necessarily. Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know, like from using the Quest, I mean, maybe it is a quality of life thing, but just like every time someone's tried to speak to me while I've been in VR, hey Josh, oh, hang on, lift it up, have your conversation, then put it back down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe that would have helped save battery life. Maybe,
yeah, absolutely.
Fatigue, things like that. I'm not against the funny eyes on the front, but I think it is a cool thing. But yeah, as we've just been discussing that, I'm like, why don't you just lift it up? Like,
Well, I'm opposite. I think it's a brilliant move putting the eyes on there because of the connection, and I think it's a step in the right direction for. It's not a usability thing. It's a completely user experience component of two people being able to find that connection. And whether it's great or not, kudos to Apple for thinking about how do we create this without compromising the actual design that we can do right now.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, it just turns clear. But that's what their goal is anyway. But they've got to find a way to lessen that barrier, and I think it's really brilliant. Actually, that wasn't working while people were doing their demos. They said that would come at a later time. probably because it's not exactly where they want it to be. Elizabeth, you talked about the avatars. I've heard so many people say, well, the avatar just doesn't look as real as it should. You remember when we were doing stuff in the Quest 2 with the avatars and everyone's like, oh, this was cartoon.
Yes, I do. But I will point out I was a big fan of the avatars. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I like them.
It was pretty fun. I actually enjoyed it too.
Well, but
I actually do have an argument against the avatars from a job perspective. I actually talked to, for those of you guys who know Nick Sprunt about it, because he's actually very against VR in the workspace because of the avatars. When we were in the workrooms class together, when we were networking with other people, getting to know their names, all we knew was their names, but we didn't know what they really looked like because the avatars didn't genuinely reflect that. And so if, unlike a video call where you could see each other face to face, it felt like the connection was partially lost because you weren't seeing who they actually were. And maybe Apple's moving towards better avatars to better represent the person as they actually are. So that's something that I felt like Nick did make a good point of. And so I have a hard time with avatars, personally.
Okay, I need to ask you, Chelsea. Yeah, because you're saying that you and Nick had a talk about whether or not see someone in the avatar space and then you interact with them, are you going to be able to recognize them when you see them in person, right? And you think that the visual on Teams or Zoom might be better.
Yeah.
Is that what that like the hypothesis is? Did you test that out in any way? Has he tested it?
It was more from, it wasn't a complete case, but it was kind of something that we were both thinking about. It's something that I feel like should be tested. Definitely not something that is like a solid thing, but it is a worry that people in an avatar space might not have the same connection as seeing a person's actual face.
So my opinion personally is that the audio quality is so much better in those spatial like audio environments that you actually are able to recognize people based on the audio. And then, you know, once you say, oh, this, you know, I'm this person, and if you did happen to see their name, you can kind of reassociate that. But that for me was even better than the visual. So I was able to meet people in the VR space, and then later when I met them and hadn't never met them before, I mean, it happened with Dylan at a work co with you, Josh. I hadn't met Dylan, and then when I heard him speaking, it was like, oh, like instant recognition. So and he same thing in my direction. So it was pretty interesting, and I do think it needs more testing, right? But I do think we put a lot of weight on the visual sometimes when the other senses are very important. I know, Mike, you talked earlier about the design of this, you know, spatial design, and I think for as far as UXers, our job is definitely going to become very much where we're involving more senses, you know, like the haptic type stuff, the hand motion, visuals, but maybe a lot of audio in the cues and things. I think that all will be really important, and kind of just, all right, we're not dealing with this flat surface. We're going to need to incorporate a lot more senses into the experience.
So something that everyone participated in those workroom sessions that we had in the classes that are on here, and people need to know that. So there's the disclaimer. We had one student who was actually doing some research and cataloging what was going on.
So that Roger?
Yeah. And so one of the things that he brought up that we later also did in last semester when we were kind of winding down on the speaker series, being completely in VR, was that this idea that, yes, you can be cartoonish and it's still okay, but does it evoke realism? Can you actually meet someone and say, I know who you are? But then it went and it swung to the opposite direction, which is if it's too real, it's too much as well. We have to remember, we don't, for example, people were, I mean, I don't know how many.
Uncanny Valley.
Yeah, and everyone kept using that term. By the way, all these people on YouTube using that term, they were using it because it was trendy. If you asked them to define it, they wouldn't know what to say. That's the first problem. Number two, though, is that if you get too real, the question is, you're putting a headset on. So you need your mind to still understand that you're not actually in a real environment. So making it so it's 90% there, which is what Apple's basically doing. This is in their first iteration, right? And they're not the only ones working on this. We saw this with the introduction of the Quest Pro. Mark Zuckerberg and his technology chief, they showed off what they were doing with those realistic type avatars. Others are working on it. So, but the question is, should we have absolute realism? I would say no. I think we need to have a proper level of, my mind knows I'm in this space. It looks almost real, but I know that it's not. Because otherwise we get into that deep fake area where it's like, I don't know, right? So we have to be very careful with that. Okay, now switching gears. I actually sent a note to Mark Zuckerberg because he, on his little thing he had with his group of people, right? Oh, this isn't what we're doing, da-da-da-da. And he said, only 2 hours? And I'm like, you know what, Mark? If you really want to have a big problem with a 2-hour battery limit, then you need to fix your Pro. Because I get 40 minutes most. 40 minutes, and it drains its battery while sitting there in the box. So if he wants to get angry at 2 hours, which everyone's like, 2 hours, it's like, give me a break. Give me a break. What other headsets out there running at 2 hours with this tech?
That's the only one.
I am correct. I am absolutely correct. And I will take Mark and the rest of them on any show that they want to come on.
Yeah, and how?
Oh no!
I heard it here first. Just kidding. That's awesome.
I never got a response from Mark.
Oh man!
Well, how many students are working on older Apple laptops that also have to be plugged in every 2 hours? That's a
well, but those are 4 or 5 year old machines in general, and those lithium batteries. Lithium has a problem. It's constantly in the mode of losing its capacity. So, and it's the same thing with cars. Tesla's got the same problem. In 4 years,
they're switching them, right? You're gonna switch them.
It's gonna cost you $15,000 to swap those out. That's not what. Well, hopefully that's what not Apple's gonna be doing.
Oh my word.
So anyway, but yeah, the battery thing, so irrelevant when it comes to actual battery life. These guys are just barking up a tree that they can't even support. So we can move on.
That's funny. That's really funny.
That's awesome. There's a bunch of other features that they announced, but like the Optic ID, the 3D camera, 3D mapping. We've seen a lot of that with the Microsoft HoloLens. Did a little bit of that, but not the Optic ID, obviously. Oh no, I guess they did, right? No, they did have that.
Yeah, there's something though, Steve, to say about this Apple did go in and compare it to all these other headsets that are out there.
No,
and they never said we were the first to have it. They just said, hey, we have optical ID. Well, when I put on my HoloLens, it logs in with my iris, right?
Yes, it does.
But the point is that it's not optical ID and it doesn't have its own enclave on the device, which means my iris is now being cataloged up on some Microsoft server someplace. And is it being shared? Guy, I hope not. Yeah, the NSA already has it now. So, but
that their point.
What?
I was going to say that brings up a huge can of worms, right? Like, what data is Apple collecting on the people that will be using this device, right? Like we said, with the eyes, the hand motion, just also, are they monitoring? What all are they able to monitor?
Yeah.
I mean, even with the Apple Watch, I think there was a lot of hesitation on saving your data, or letting them use your data. Although I am so into research, I can't not say no to those things because I just value research so much. But there is definitely okay, what kind of power are we handing over by giving them all that data?
Which, by the way, Stephen, if people who are listening and watching this, Elizabeth brings up a good point, and that's called Nero Technology. And the question right now, Elizabeth, is what is actually being passed to Apple, and is Apple sharing any of that? Now,
yeah, that is a scary question.
Apple's been actually being very good at least giving us at least this idea that they're not doing that, right? Compared to
making us aware that they are,
and things like that. Well, here's the other thing: is on the headset itself, it also has the enclave, which is all of those things that should be left on the device which are not accessible to other systems. So if that's true, then it's probably very negligible. Some things, have to happen probably, but it'll be interesting to see. But everyone should start reading up on Nero Technology. There's a couple really good books that I can recommend. It's a little scary, but we'll just have to see. But
I'd love to hear him.
Apple's not the first to come out with the idea of the keyboard. The keyboard that's on the HoloLens, I mean, it's cool, and about 10 minutes later, you lose interest because it's just so hard.
It's really hard. It's really hard to use.
It's like, my gosh, this is hard. And that's not taking anything away from Microsoft, although I would say, guys, you can get working harder and faster. They just got done basically gutting their entire team 6-7 months ago, whatever it was, in spring semester. And then they came back and said, oh, yeah, we're still on track and we're going to have a HoloLens 3 when it means that we've got the technology in place and it makes sense. And I'm like, you guys better get a move on, because you had a great idea and you got good tech, but you got to execute. So
yeah,
that's something for sure. Like, shout out to Apple for delivering on like their promise and create that trust with the consumers, where okay, we'll take a while, we'll release it when we're ready, but then I just have a hard time believing it's going to go anywhere, right? I mean, they won't drop it. So they're going to keep developing it. They have LiDAR on all of their Pro phones, which is hugely helpful for like helping us help the world develop this AR technology, because a lot of these other phones that started putting LiDAR on phones, they put it on one of them and they drop it. And then it's just really hard to find consistency with any other company that's willing to dive into this. And maybe Apple just has deep pockets, and they're the ones that are able to do so. But yeah, like that is what we are having to develop with. And so because they're so reliable and consistent with what the capabilities are, we can use, the LiDAR scanners to create these 3D maps and things. And you can't really reliably do that with other devices. So I really think Apple, I like that they're diving into this, and I'm looking forward to them continuing to improve on it. And I wonder what they're going to be able to do, like integrate. So they have these, the Vision Pros for people that are willing to, buy those and develop with them. But with the new phones coming out, how will those also be augmented further so that they will be able to be used together? And I think Apple just does such a good job of that type of integration that I do believe it will be highly usable for everyone, depending on, their budget amounts. It won't just be the glasses.
Well, no, Elizabeth was right. The thing is Apple's reliable because they have a 10-year plan. If you look at how AR works, it still works all the way back on an iPhone 6.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It's been there for a while.
It's been there for a long time now. Does it mean that it's extremely fast? No. Not everything in the AR kit works on the iPhone 6, but they plan out and strategize to where Android's just a big dustbin fire. I mean, it's just... even Adobe Aero, when we're teaching those types of things in the first Extended Reality Essentials course, we can't actually use it anymore because there's no Android support. I mean, They had it up on the store and now it's off. It goes up and then it's off. And it's just like, okay, so, it's a real problem. Now, these are all new technologies. We also have to understand that there's going to be a lot of growing pains, and it's not easy. Let's be very careful, because doing that long-term approach is a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of consistency. But you got to remember, Tim Cook is a systems manager. He's a supply chain manager. That's why he was brought on board by Steve Jobs. He's a master at it, probably the best ever, in history, and he shows it. And so he could pull this off across the board because he understood how to do that. But here's something I'll throw out to you. I've been saying this for probably the last year, and it's not that Apple was the first, but Apple has had this idea, and some started catching on to it. We started about 1.5 years calling for the second screen. And the second screen, you heard it here first. I'm gonna be the one that coins this phrase. But it's the second.
Love it.
Well, which is that the Vision Pro, truthfully, its killer component is going to be, I no longer need to have a monitor.
Oh,
I can
absolutely.
use this as my monitor. That's why we have over 23 million pixels per eye. And it's going to be a natural consequence of it. It's not like, the Quest 2 or the Quest Pro. The Quest Pro doesn't even have as nice of cameras actually as the Quest 2. But it has color. But, we're able to put our screens in there, but they're not truthfully set up to be that way. Apple is making it with the Vision Pro to basically say, this is my screen. It's right here.
And it notices it in like a second. It sees your screen and just whoop, brings it right in. And then on the Quest 2, it's a whole process on the Quest 2
they
for
don't
that
see
workroom.
it as a separate element. They see it as an integrated element.
And how much more, adaptable will that make us in like remote work, hybrid work, travel, things like this, where, I'm literally in a Starbucks right now and I have my screen, I'm buried in it. I would have no problem wearing Apple goggles and like having a big huge screen. I have like,
let's see. I
go back and forth hauling my screen around from like work, home, second screen. I'm like carrying it in to work and like constantly, because I'll work like 2 days in the office and 2 days at home, or switch up the last 6. Yeah, I'm like going back and forth with screens and like desk risers and all kinds of stuff that is kind of a pain. So yeah, I think this whole big, huge, expandable movie screen that you can have like anywhere, that is going to be pretty dang cool.
Stephen and I are going
It's going to be amazing.
Stephen and I are going to show up to the Starbucks you're at where you're wearing the Vision Pro and say, she actually meant it.
Absolutely. I'll bring one of my own, maybe.
Yeah.
So that's my final question to the panel is, are you going to get one?
Well, that's an unfair question on my
It is an
side.
unfair question.
I've already put in for 10, so.
Oh,
Yeah, I have 10.
University budget.
I think I've got a lot of headset super senior.
Yeah, for real.
No, but yes, we have a card in our backlog right now. We're planning to order one to use for research for sure. In my company, me getting one personally, it's hard to say for sure. I would love to. Let's double my income, then I would totally do it. It's not that much.
My answer too. that's my answer as well.
Yeah, it's not that much more than another laptop. So why not?
Josh just has to ask
It is a
Dylan,
computer.
right? Just ask Dylan, Josh. He'll buy you one.
They got one. Yeah, I probably won't, like the same. I probably won't get one personally until, like, I don't know. It always happens that I put one on and try someone else's, and then that is my goal in life, is to get that. Because that happened when I tried the HTC Vive and was like, oh, I've got to get a VR thing now, and then I tried a Quest, and that's kind of what put me there. So yeah, I'll probably be like, but then when I'll try one, I'll make that my life goal to get one.
Well, I tell you what, Steven, the whole group knows they can come down and try them as alumni of the program.
Oh,
Yep.
That's exciting.
You're first. Heck yeah.
That's exciting.
Bring Josh into the fold, no problem.
Perfect. Then there'll be a future episode then where we talk about, what it's like using one.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
But yeah, I'm the same boat as all of you. Josh, I had the exact same experience with the Quest 2. I was not planning on getting one until I tried it. Then it was over. And then, then there was a lot of projects over at the university, and Harper's class was incredible, amazing, innovative. It was absolutely incredible. So yeah, I came.
Well,
I got one.
The greater question, Stephen, is Josh going to upgrade to the Quest 3 this fall?
Ooh, Josh, are you going to upgrade to the Quest 3?
Until they bring out like a game that I can't play on my Quest 2, probably not.
That's probably.
There you go.
Thank you all so much for joining me for today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please give us a like for the video, and please consider subscribing, because there'll be more future content on this in the future. So until next time, guys, keep it nerdy.
nerdy.
I'll keep it nerdy.
Woo. Oh, straight up.
Snap.